I've always dreamt of what it would feel like to have one of my songs really get picked up by Spotify's algorithm, and this week it finally happened. My song got pushed massively into release radar, and today I want to show you exactly how it happened. Was it luck? Was it strategy? Or was it just a damn good song? Either way, I'm going to break down my full strategy that took my release from 0 to 10,000 streams in the first 10 days of its release. So let's dive in. All right, so I'm going to break this down into three sections. Number one, the ads themselves. Number two, the ad creatives. Something most people don't seem to talk about much, but is probably one of the most important components. And number three, the data. What caused Spotify to release this into its algorithm? And number four, as a bonus, I'd like to go over the main driver of this song's success, and that would be the song itself. So let's get into it. All right, so I've been running this ad since about June 21st. The release date was June 28th, which was a Saturday. And I ran a pre-save campaign up until that point, which got about 52 saves, as you can see here on Hyped It. Obviously, with pre-save campaigns, some people say they're good, some people say they're not good. I think they are good. Any sort of push for your song to show Spotify that your song is doing well is good. So to get 50 to 100 pre-saves, I'd say is probably a good thing. So after that pre-save campaign, the link actually just changes. Instead of saying pre-save, it'll just say play. So you actually don't have to do anything. You can just let the ad run. Basically, what I have going on here with these ads, I'm not going to run you through how to run an ad. This isn't that type of video, but I'm going to run through exactly how I did this. So basically what I started out with was some testing. I'll open these up. So I started out with multiple artists, and then I had just one ad running towards Lumineers, and then one ad running towards people that were interested in guitar. So I'll kind of break this down. So for multiple artists here, this is where I did most of my testing. So as you can see, I had ad 1 to 6, and I had about 4 hooks per ad. So I'm doing a lot of testing here. So I ran this for the first week or so during the Spotify pre-save campaign, and I was just basically seeing which section of the song is doing the best and which hook is doing the best. So it basically came down to ad 1, hook 2 that ended up being the best. And what I did, so if you go into this, you can actually see where people are clicking. So ad 4, hook 2, was getting 22 clicks, 77 cents per result, which isn't that good. Ad 6, hook 2, 74 cents. Ad 1, hook 2, 61. So this one is significantly less, and it seems to be where most of the traffic is going. So it's also 61 cents, which isn't great. I want to get down to like mid 30s to 30, and this is in Canadian as well. So I did notice, obviously, it's doing well. It's not bad. 61 cents is not too bad, but I figured once I had this data that, okay, I got the ad, that's doing well. Let's try some different targeting. So this specific ad for targeting was targeted towards multiple artists. So for the artists in here, I have Bon Iver, Hozier, Mumford & Sons, Lumineers, Vance Joy. So obviously that wasn't enough. I think we needed to dial this in a little bit more. So what I did, I have some previous ad campaigns that did really well with Lumineers and Vance Joy. So I noticed ad 1, hook 2 were doing well. And I also noticed ad 4, hook 2 was doing well. So I just stopped this campaign with that data. So I ran a campaign that had strictly Vance Joy, and then a campaign that had strictly Lumineers. And then also, that interest must match Spotify as a streaming service. So once I ran that, I started noticing the costs go down significantly. So if you're looking at Vance Joy, the maximum is 28 cents and Lumineers is 37 cents per conversion. Obviously, that's a far cry from that 74 cents from multiple artists. So basically, starting it out, I had a ton of different sections of the song with a ton of different hooks, which I will get to once I get going with the ad creative. And then once I kind of seen where the traffic was headed, I started dialing in which artists I'm going to target, which I also used that data from previous ads that worked for my stuff. So it wasn't too difficult. You can get into quite a bit of troubleshooting here with different ad creatives and different artists and stuff. But the first kind of trial on this, I got lucky and Vance Joy and Lumineers were doing relatively well. So I kind of went with that. And then Facebook kind of optimizes towards this. So I noticed they're pushing Vance Joy more because obviously the cost per result is much less. Basically, I kind of got lucky. Sometimes there's a lot more troubleshooting involved, but on this instance, I seen that the ads weren't doing good at first, and you want to kind of dive in and see why they're not doing good. All in all, your cost per result might be super high, but you want to click on it and see, which ones are doing well. Like maybe one ad is doing $1.50 per result, and then another one's doing 40 cents per result. So you really want to dive in here and see which ones are doing well and then kind of optimize that way. So that's about it for the ads. I'm targeting pretty much tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 countries. When it gets pushed out into the Spotify's algorithm, it starts pushing it out into tier 1 countries. But yeah, that's kind of it on the ad side of things. Maybe I'll show the countries here. Here are the countries that I used. I actually don't even have Canada and the US in here because the ads started working really well. But yeah, these are the countries I targeted. So now let's get into the ad creative because I feel like a lot of people don't talk about this, and I feel like this is the most important part of an ad campaign. So basically what I did, I picked 6 different sections of the song. I know when you use Hyped It to run ads, they only let you use 3 sections, but I'm a firm believer that you want to exhaust all your resources here. You want to try every single section of the song that could be good because maybe the 3 sections that you pick aren't going to be the sections that resonate with people. So you want to just try as many sections of the song as you could. So I basically did the intro / first verse. I did the first chorus. I did the second verse. I did the breakdown section into the last chorus. And then I did a part where there's a solo, which is where you see on the side here where I did guitar ads. I tried to target people that were into guitar, and then I just did an outro section. So all these together, I made 6 total ads. And then what I did with those 6 ads was I made 4 hooks for each of the ads. So we're doing a lot of testing here. We're basically putting this into Facebook's hands to say, hey, find the people that like this section of the song and this hook for that section of the song. So we're giving Facebook a lot to work with, not too much to work with, but enough to say, find the audience here. Because if I just did, 2 sections of the song, no hooks, it might not do well, right? So you need to give it a lot of data. You need to do a lot of A/B testing here. Otherwise, you're relying on luck at that point. So basically for the hooks here, it's basically just different section of the song. So ad 1 is a different section of the song than ad 2. So basically what I have going here is, here's the hook. This is a song for the words you wish you said but didn't. This one here is actually the winning ad. The hook here is, this is a song for the people fighting a silent battle. I also have another one that says a song for fans of Noah Kahan, Mumford & Sons, Lumineers. So there's some different hooks in each ad that kind of targeted that section of the song. I just said things that were very similar to what the lyrics were saying. And to get these hooks, I honestly had ChatGPT's help. What I did was I typed in my lyrics on ChatGPT. I said, hey, I'm running a Facebook ad campaign for my next music release. Here are the lyrics for my song. And I copied and pasted the lyrics. Can you give me some hooks that would help engage the audience and click on this ad? And then ChatGPT would give you a ton of different hooks. I used some of them, and then some of them kind of sparked my inspiration for different hooks on my own. And that's basically how I got those hooks. Super easy. Type it into the free version of ChatGPT and, maybe think of some on your own as well. And that's basically what I did. So another thing about these ads is the video itself. So as you can see, there's a hook, there's text on screen, center of the screen. I also have my face center of the screen. I know sometimes Instagram crops the ad, so it'll cut off your head if your head is like up here on the screen. So try and center yourself so that if it crops out some of the ad, that you are in the center of the screen. Just a little tip, because it honestly could mess it up. Like somebody might be looking at your ad and your head's cut off and they're not going to take it as seriously, right? That might be a click that's gone. So try and put everything you want in the center. Same with the hook text and the lyrics. So as this goes through, you can also see that I did like a little dynamic zoom. It's nothing too obvious, but it's just a subtle zoom. As well, I have some good lighting. I put a lamp in with some warm lighting. I have a nice background with some, colorful, good looking vinyl. So it's a very nice aesthetic to just look at this video. You can also kind of see my guitar amp in the background. You could tell I'm kind of in a music studio. And along with that, I also used a ring light, which is right behind the screen. You can see my hand lighting up there. And, you want to get good lighting. You don't want to have a dark face. You don't want to have just poor lighting where you can't even see yourself and you can't even see what's on the screen. You want some good lighting, and it doesn't need to be expensive. Ring lights are not expensive to buy. And then that paired with the lighting in the background of the lamp, really gave this video a nice ambiance. And then, to add to like a few little extra things that might have helped this ad do well, I'm playing a banjo. Banjos aren't typically played. Usually you see somebody playing a guitar, so that might pique people's interest. I dressed nice in this as well. I have some nice jeans on. I have a nice shirt, a nice hat, all like relatively stylish. I'm not a fashion guy or anything, but I made sure to get some nice clothes. I'm not going to wear some sweatpants and a sweater, and I didn't look, like I just woke up out of bed and I'm in my pajamas. You know what I mean? So it's a small detail, but it can go a long way, right? You're looking a lot more professional now. Took a nice shower. You shaved your face, you put on some nice clothes. It does go a long way to the viewer. So like checking all these boxes really makes your ad creative do well. And so after the hook on screen, the hook kind of stays on screen for looks like about 11 seconds. And then I get in and I put the lyrics on the screen as well. And like I said, as it goes in, it's kind of zooming in just very slowly. And that's it. Like, it's not anything complicated, but it's just like a few minor things. Like, attention to detail, I find, goes a long way. You know what I mean? If you're recording with your phone camera, try and get the lighting set up and try and, make sure there's no smudge on the camera where the camera just looks washed out and it's reflecting all the light because there's smudges on the camera. I do have a good camera. I'm using a Canon T6i, but you don't need a good camera for this. I could have done this with my iPhone as well, but make sure the video is of relatively good quality, right? Like, don't just turn the lights on in the room like this. Like, here's the camera quality with all my lighting off right now. It looks horrible. And I also have a few bulbs out in this room, so the lighting's really bad. With an iPhone, it's not going to look very good, right? And here's my setup without this lamp. There's no warmth to the shot. Now you turn on the lamp and there's a little bit of warmth. Obviously I can do a little bit better with my setup. I'm definitely looking into getting some better lighting, but some of this stuff goes a long way. You probably have a lamp somewhere in your house where you can put in the background just to make some warm lighting and just a nice atmosphere. Just these things go a long way. That's about it for the ad creative itself. Another few tips too. I got lazy here and I did it in my studio, but you can also A/B test way more if you want. Like, I did one ad campaign where I did a ton of different styles of ads. So I did, the playing in my studio. I went out in public and played. I just tested a bunch of different styles of ad content. You can get heavy into that, but, it's all about a time thing too. That takes a lot of time. You don't have to just do your studio. If you do want to stand out, go out in public. Maybe there's a cool waterfront, or maybe there's a cool, you can go into the forest or a cool trail, a hiking trail, bring your guitar, bring a camera and, and film something out there. That'll probably go a long way as well. You can do like music video style content. If you have a band, maybe get somebody's girlfriend or boyfriend to come in with a good camera and take some cool shots. If you know somebody that's into videography, that would be even better as well, because they would get some even cooler shots. And, just kind of think of some cool ideas. You can even ask ChatGPT, but you don't just have to do the studio. I try my best not to, but lately it's just a time thing for me. But these are just all tips that you can use to get a nice ad creative. All right, so let's look at the data. As you can see, I'm sitting at 15,000 streams. This is the craziest I've ever done on a song. It's been insane. So if we take a look here, I'm kind of going over the first 10 days here. So, day one, Saturday, 65 streams, your Instagram followers, your, Spotify followers, your friends, family, mom, dad, they're going to all stream it. So you're going to get some streams there. And then obviously the ad creatives are going to push into that as well. Sunday, kind of same thing. You're probably getting like a compounding effect from the ads and, friends and family that are kind of repeat listeners for the next few days. And I find like, it takes a few days, but then you'll suddenly start to get a spike in the algorithm when you have a good performing track. So as you can see, by Friday, that's when I got that first release radar spike. So when we're here, we're getting playlist ads, we're getting saves, we're getting repeat listens, which, the streams per listener isn't super high here, but we're still getting, people that are repeat listeners, and it's giving Spotify good data. And what we're doing here is giving Spotify good data on the track. You're showing Spotify, oh, people are streaming this song. People are saving this song. People are adding it to playlists. People are, repeat listening. So Spotify's goal is to keep people on its app. And now you're showing Spotify this song is keeping people on the app. Now every song has a popularity score. Now that popularity score is increasing the more saves, the more streams, the more everything you're getting. And Spotify is saying, oh, this song is starting to get good. Let's test it. Let's start pushing it out, see what happens. So in this song in particular, looks like Friday or Thursday night, I guess, because there's different time zones. I probably started getting pushed out into release radar because you can see a spike on Thursday from, 100 streams or so to 400 streams. And then Friday, 4,600 streams. That was my most insane release radar spike I've ever had. So it was crazy. And then, it drops down to 2,200, 1,900, then back up to 2,800, 2,400. It's maintaining a significant amount of streams, which is insane because I've never had a track do this well. So, you go through playlist ads. So day one, 23, 12, 18, 21, 14, 33, 102. Now you're getting into these bigger streams, so you're going to get more playlist ads. Saves, 56. Obviously, that was from the Presave campaign. 24, 28, 25. It's not like thousands, but it's enough to show Spotify like this song is getting traction. Like if you're not running ads, you're probably going to get a little bit of a spike in your first couple of days from your friends and family and stuff. But after that, it's not going to stay consistent. Whereas the ads keep it consistent. So if we go into Ads Manager and just pick a random day, so say yesterday, for example, I had 54 results. So 54 people clicked on my track. That doesn't mean 54 people saved it, but I likely had 54 people stream that song, and then maybe about half of them to 3/4 of them could have saved it. Some of them could have added it to their playlist. So I'm consistently getting that day in and day out. So there was 55 the day before, 76 the day before that. So it's consistently giving it that data. Whereas if you're not promoting it, you're not going to give Spotify that good data. And it's just going to say, okay, nobody's listening to this song. I'm not going to push it out. So this is why ads are so powerful. And when you have a well-performing ad, this is why it becomes very powerful because you're giving Spotify that data. So now let's go into the playlist. So where are these streams coming from? So, as you can see, I've gotten a little bit of a Discover Weekly boost, some from mixes and some of these playlists, but the real push here is coming from Release Radar. So, I typically do get a lot of radio play, but this song isn't getting a lot. But Release Radar is just absolutely pushing this song out, probably because of the good data. And then also, which is another one to kind of make mention, is Your DJ. Obviously, for those of you who have Spotify, you know that there's the Your DJ feature, and it kind of DJs your day and night and plays songs for you. So I'm also getting a lot from that, which is kind of cool because Spotify never had that feature before. But as you can see, almost 10,000 streams from a Release Radar, which is crazy. And I'm only the first week in, so I'd be curious if Spotify continues to push this out on Release Radar or not. It would be very cool if it did, but fingers crossed. But as you can see, that's where all these streams are coming from, right? Which is kind of cool to see that Spotify is recognizing this track as a good track. And then, along with that, I kind of made this spreadsheet because I said, the question comes to me, why did this get pushed on Release Radar? You look at the comparison from Scars, the song that was just released, and I Feel Like Running Away. So, it's very similar, like, 65, 56, 23. Obviously, that's your first day. I Feel Like Running Away actually had a better second day. Then, you're looking at stream save. Obviously, there's a bit more saves on scars for sure, especially when the algorithm starts kicking in. More playlist ads as well. A little bit better, but I don't see it as that much better to give it that much more of a push. So I kind of started asking myself, why is that? Why is it doing that? So, I went on to ChatGPT and I kind of asked ChatGPT, like, why is this happening? And it kind of broke it down for me. And, whether this is right or wrong, I think this is good information overall. So it's saying, for one, better early consistency. So even with fewer spikes, Scars didn't have the big drop offs like I Feel Like Running Away had. Spotify favors steady early growth. So if you go into this, I mean, it had one drop off day, so I don't really know how accurate that is. It went from 203 to 57. This was a little bit more consistent. I don't know how much that helps, but whatever. Higher quality listeners. This was a good one. Scars may have attracted better engaged algorithm influencing listeners, which is a possibility. Maybe these listeners, if you look at the streams per listener, this one has 1.8, this one's averaging 1.9 for I Feel Like Running Away. Maybe they were just higher quality listeners. Maybe they added them to more playlists. Maybe they added them to larger playlists. Maybe they have their own playlist with thousands of followers for a reach. The quality of listener might have been there. Release radar edge, possibly more followers / more active follower base equals better release radar engagement, which equals more algorithmic snowball. So that's also a thing as well. So when I released I Feel Like Running Away, I probably only had 400 to 500 followers. I now have over 1,000 followers. So maybe my followers are seeing the song and they're more active and more engaged, and I'm gaining more fans. And that could also add to the higher quality listeners as well. So that's good to note. More known context, the genre / mood might have mapped better to known Spotify's playlist buckets. So that's a possibility as well. Maybe the song resonates more with people and different Spotify playlists. And then playlist quality is greater than quantity. So fewer, more influential playlist ads can outperform higher quality small playlist ads. So maybe the playlists that I'm on have higher reach, more people, higher quality people, etc. So these are all things to take into account as to why Spotify pushed this out, because, looking at these numbers, you would say, you know what, maybe like it's not that much better. And when you actually look at when I Feel Like Running Away was pushed out, the ratio between streams, saves, and playlist ads is way better than this one. So if you look at it, you have 2,200 streams, 76 saves, 1,200 streams, 59 saves. So there's only a handful more saves, but also double the amount of streams. So you're looking at the ratios, and the ratios for I Feel Like Running Away are actually better. So it's it kind of caught me off guard, but looking at ChatGPT's points, it does make sense, some of the stuff it's saying there. Lastly, what I want to talk about was the song. You can have the absolute best marketing campaign on the planet. If the song sucks and it doesn't resonate with people, you're not going to get clicks, and you're probably not going to get as many streams. Obviously, you push out a ton of money into a marketing campaign and a ton of money into ads, it's going to do a lot better. If you have hundreds of thousands of dollars, yes, you can pay for doing well. But if you don't have a lot of money like me, you're relying on the song to be well. So, the song itself, it's a good song. It's in the indie folk genre, which is huge right now. There's some artists that are blowing up like crazy. Noah Kahan, Alex Warren, some of these ambient folk guys as well. Hazlitt, Novo Amor, all these guys. This indie folk genre is huge. So, I kind of checked all the boxes for an indie folk song, right? You start off slow. It's an emotional sound. You have a lot of big sounding instruments. You slowly, progressively build up into this big crescendo, big sounding chorus, banjo, you got mandolins, you got acoustic guitar, you have cellos, violins, everything with that big sound. And I'm not tooting my own horn here, but this is kind of the reality of the situation, is from what people have told me, is a very catchy song. You can easily add it to your playlist. You can, go on a road trip and listen to it. And it's just very easy listening. And as well, it was professionally mixed and mastered by Alex Emmerich at Audio Edges, who does a fantastic job. He also co-produced this song with me. So, all of that kind of added together, checking all those boxes help with the song as well, right? Like, if somebody's just starting out and releasing their first song and they haven't done songwriting before, probably not going to do as well as somebody who's been songwriting their whole life, producing for the last 5 years. There is a buildup to get to this point. And, if you're watching this and you're releasing your first song, I'm not saying that it's not going to do well, but, there is an amount of time and effort that goes into this hobby that the more you put in, the more you're going to get out of it. And I've been writing songs since I was probably about 11 years old. And I've been producing music in this genre now for 3 or 4 years. I've been a producer for probably 6, 7, 8 years now. It's not my first rodeo. So that has a lot to do with it as well, is the actual song. So, don't expect to release your song, do a marketing campaign exactly like this and have the exact same results, because it does have a lot to do with the song. And you do have to check off a lot of those boxes. So as I'm editing this down, I don't mean to sound arrogant when I'm talking about this track. I don't know the viral formula for a track. Just this specific track checked all of the boxes for a song to do well with ads. The reality of the situation is I'll probably release 2, 3, 4 more songs, and it's not going to do as well as this song. I don't know the viral formula for creating an amazing song, but sometimes you just make something that just checks all the boxes, and this specific song did that. So I just wanted to clarify that. I'm not trying to be arrogant at all. This specific song did well, and that paired with all of the testing that I did with all the different sections of the ads, everything gave it a higher chance of doing well. So I just wanted to clarify that, this song just happened to check all the boxes. Anyways, that was a lot of information. So that's it for this video. I hope this can help show you guys, how you can market your music without trying to go viral on TikTok, because that I find is very exhausting. If anyone needs help running ads, maybe wants me to set up an ad campaign for them, give them tips, tricks, send me a message. We can work something out. I wish I can help you all out for free, but I cannot do that. I do not have the time, but I'm sure we can work out a good deal. I can kind of help you out, teach you the ways on how to do this stuff, because it is kind of complicated, but I do have some easier ways of doing this. But send me a message, reach out. We can work something out. I hope every single one of you follows this and gets 1 million streams on your next release. I can't promise that, but hopefully it does happen. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one.